There are new bombshell claims today from royal insiders who say King Charles's cancer is incurable and he will likely die with the disease. Despite the 76-year-old returning to official public duties, speculation over his condition is only intensifying.
The lights at Balmoral Castle haven't gone dark in days. Something is happening behind those ancient walls that goes far beyond medical updates and treatment plans. King Charles is fighting his toughest battle yet.
King Charles spent a short period of time in hospital today after experiencing the temporary side effects of his cancer treatment.
But that's only part of what's shaking the monarchy to its core. While the nation waits anxiously for news about their king, another story has erupted. One about duty, loyalty, and a disappearance so shocking it's left everyone speechless. The woman who vowed to stand beside Charles through everything has vanished at the exact moment her presence matters most. And into that empty space has stepped someone else. Someone who wasn't supposed to carry this burden, but has shouldered it with such extraordinary grace that the entire future of the crown has shifted. Britain is watching in real time as duty reveals itself in one person while exposing its complete absence in another. Stay with us as we uncover the truth about what's really happening inside the palace walls. The night that changed the monarchy forever. The emergency began just before midnight on Tuesday. Inside Balmoral's private medical wing, monitors started showing readings that made the chief physician's face go pale. King Charles, who'd been managing his condition with quiet courage for months, had suddenly deteriorated in ways that couldn't be ignored. This wasn't a temporary setback or something that could be fixed with medication adjustments. This was the kind of decline that required immediate family notification and emergency protocols. Within 20 minutes, secure communication lines across the royal network lit up with urgent messages. The type of alert that drags people from sleep and sends hearts racing. This was the call that everyone in the palace system dreads, but knows might eventually come. Senior aides scrambled into action. Doctors conferred in hushed, urgent tones. The entire machinery of monarchy shifted into crisis mode without anyone having to explain why. Prince William received the notification shortly after midnight at Windsor. Those who saw him leave said his face told the entire story. This was serious. This was his father, and there was no time to waste. He traveled through empty motorways in the dead of night, arriving at Balmoral before dawn. When he stepped through those castle doors, staff members could see the weight he was carrying. This wasn't a routine visit. This was a son arriving to be with his father during what might be the end. Princess Anne got the same message and responded exactly as anyone who knew her would expect. She got in her car and drove through the darkness alone, without waiting for staff or security arrangements. Anne had spent 7 decades being the royal who simply showed up without drama or fanfare.
The hardest working member of the royal family isn't the king or one of his sons, it's his sister. Over the last several years, the Princess Royal has topped all her relatives for royal engagements per year, and by a sizable margin.
And this night was no exception. She arrived at Balmoral quietly, bringing nothing but herself and the iron sense of duty that had defined her entire life. But as the early morning hours crawled past and the situation inside that medical wing grew more critical, one absence became impossible to ignore. Queen Camilla wasn't there, not delayed by traffic, not struggling to arrange transportation, simply not coming. Her staff at Clarence House confirmed she'd been fully informed about the king's condition, but had made a deliberate choice to remain in London. The explanation given was vague, something about needing personal time and private space to process everything. To someone outside the palace walls, that might have sounded reasonable. But to the people gathered in that crisis room at Balmoral, to the courtiers who dedicated their lives to understanding royal duty, it sounded like something else entirely. It sounded like abandonment at the worst possible moment. Eventually, someone had to acknowledge the obvious. A senior advisor cleared his throat and announced to the assembled group that Her Majesty had chosen to stay in London and would be monitoring developments from there. Princess Anne's reaction was swift and cutting. "Monitoring from London?" she said, her voice sharp as glass. "His Majesty doesn't need monitoring. He needs someone sitting beside him, telling him he's not facing this alone." The silence that followed was crushing. William looked down at the briefing papers in his hands, jaw clenched so tight the muscles in his face visibly strained. He didn't need to say a word. Everyone in that room understood exactly what he was feeling. As dawn approached, a critical decision was made. If the Queen Consort refused to be there for her husband during his darkest hour, someone else would have to fill that void. The call went to Catherine just after 2 in the morning. William's voice was exhausted but steady, and he didn't need to explain much. Catherine understood immediately what was needed and what was at stake. She didn't ask about protocol or whether this was officially her responsibility. She simply said she'd leave right away and started moving. By the time sunlight touched the Scottish Highlands, Catherine's small convoy was already approaching Balmoral through the morning mist. She'd traveled with minimal security and no press notification. No announcements or official statements. Just someone arriving because it was the right thing to do, because someone needed to be there, and because duty meant more to her than titles or protocol ever could. When Catherine walked into King Charles's private chamber, the entire atmosphere shifted. Staff members who'd been running on pure anxiety and adrenaline for hours felt something release. Here was someone who genuinely cared, who'd come not because obligation demanded it, but because her heart did. She went directly to the king's bedside, took his hand with gentle care, and spoke to him in quiet tones meant only for him. Then she turned to the medical team with focused, intelligent questions about his condition, his treatment, and what could be done to keep him comfortable. Within an hour, Catherine had established a rotation schedule so Charles wouldn't wake up alone, set up privacy protocols to protect his dignity, and somehow brought a sense of calm order to what had been overwhelming chaos. One palace aide who watched her work that morning later described it as witnessing someone step fully into their purpose. Catherine wasn't performing duty for the cameras or putting on a show. She was simply being exactly who she'd always been, someone who cared deeply and showed up when it mattered most. The absence that Britain couldn't forgive. By Wednesday afternoon, whispers about Camilla's absence had spread far beyond Balmoral and into every corner of the royal network. Staff members across palace households were trying to process what was happening because it defied everything they understood about how the monarchy operated. Over decades and through countless crises, scandals, divorces, deaths, public disasters, one rule had remained sacred. When trouble came, the family presented a united front. Personal feelings got set aside for duty and public responsibility. This situation was different. The absence was too glaring, too impossible to explain away with polished statements about private reflection and personal processing. By midday, journalists who'd covered the royal beat for decades started picking up on inconsistencies. Why were all official updates flowing through William's office instead of the Queen Consort's? Why hadn't a single photograph emerged of Camilla traveling to Scotland? The questions began politely, but grew sharper as hours passed without convincing answers. Inside Buckingham Palace, veteran courtiers who'd seen everything were genuinely stunned. These were people who'd developed protocols for every conceivable crisis. Terrorist threats, sudden deaths, abdication scenarios, everything imaginable. But nobody had ever thought to create a contingency plan for a queen consort who simply chose not to show up when the king was fighting for his life.
This was King Charles' last public appearance before he was admitted to hospital. Hosting an evening reception at Buckingham Palace, he would have known he had a medical appointment the next morning. In a short statement, the palace said following scheduled and ongoing medical treatment for cancer this morning.
One senior official, speaking quietly to a trusted journalist, captured the mood perfectly. "We prepared for every scenario we could imagine. This never occurred to us, because it seemed fundamentally impossible. The contrast between Catherine and Camilla became the story that overshadowed even concerns about the king's health. Television broadcasts started showing split-screen comparisons, Catherine arriving at Balmoral with purposeful composure next to footage of Camilla's car leaving London toward her private countryside retreat. Social media erupted with fury and confusion. Hashtags demanding to know where the Queen was trended across Britain within hours. This wasn't idle curiosity. People were genuinely angry. What made everything catastrophically worse were the details leaking from Clarence House itself. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge, Camilla hadn't just passively stayed away, she'd actively refused when her own staff practically begged her to travel to Scotland. When advisors tried explaining how devastating her absence would look to both family and public, she reportedly responded with irritation, saying she couldn't face that environment and that others were perfectly capable of handling the situation. When those words inevitably leaked to the press, the public backlash was immediate and brutal. This wasn't being interpreted as grief or private mourning anymore. It looked like someone stepping back precisely when stepping forward mattered most. The damage to her reputation was swift and severe. Television commentators who'd previously defended her began openly questioning whether she understood what being queen consort,
once known as the other woman, Camilla is now the queen. Kind of. The new king's darling wife has become the queen consort.
Actually required. One particularly harsh newspaper editorial posed the question everyone was thinking. What's the point of wearing a crown if you're unwilling to bear its weight during difficult times? Meanwhile, Catherine was quietly doing everything that desperately needed doing, despite nobody officially asking her to do it. She coordinated seamlessly with medical staff, ensured the king's comfort and privacy were maintained, read briefings aloud to him during his alert moments, and provided steady emotional support to both William and Anne throughout their most anxious hours. She never sought cameras, never asked for recognition, never made it about herself. She just showed up and did what love and duty required. Princess Anne, known throughout her life for blunt honesty and no-nonsense directness, was openly grateful for Catherine's presence. In private conversations with trusted palace aides, she made it absolutely clear that the younger woman had essentially prevented the entire situation from collapsing into complete disaster. Without Catherine there providing warmth and genuine human connection, Balmoral would have felt cold and clinical, just worried faces hovering around medical equipment. Instead, there was someone making sure Charles felt surrounded by real love and care. The British public, watching all of this unfold through constant news coverage and leaked palace details, was forming its judgment in real time. Opinion polls painted a stark picture. Catherine's approval rating soared to levels not seen since the late Queen's funeral. Camilla's numbers plummeted dramatically. More significant than the statistics themselves was the language people were using. Words like inspiring, selfless, and devoted dominated every discussion about Catherine. Words like absent, calculating, and disappointing filled every conversation about Camilla. The monarchy wasn't just facing a health crisis about one man's battle with illness.
King Charles III is sharing a rare health update amid his cancer battle. Over a year after the British monarch shared he had been diagnosed with an undisclosed cancer in February of 2024,
it was experiencing a fundamental transformation in how the entire nation viewed its present and future leadership. Two women had faced the exact same crisis and chosen completely opposite responses. One had shown up with grace and compassion. The other had stayed away. And that choice had revealed everything the public needed to know about character and duty. The future emerges from the crisis. Something extraordinary happened during those intense days at Balmoral that had nothing to do with official announcements or constitutional procedures. The entire structure of royal leadership quietly reorganized itself around the people who'd actually shown up. William began chairing critical meetings that would normally require the monarch's direct involvement and approval. Catherine took on coordination responsibilities that traditionally belonged exclusively to the queen consort. Together, they formed a partnership that palace insiders described as surprisingly seamless and remarkably effective. Nobody was staging a power grab or mounting a palace coup. They were simply filling a leadership vacuum that had been created by someone else's conscious decision to step back. The institutional machinery of monarchy, which had operated the same way for generations, adapted almost overnight to this new reality. And the strangest part was how natural it all felt to everyone involved. King Charles, despite his seriously weakened condition, remained aware of the dynamics unfolding around him. During his more lucid and alert moments, he received carefully edited updates about family situations and public reaction. People close to the king reported that he felt profound sadness about Camilla's choice to stay away, but he channeled his limited energy toward expressing gratitude for those who had come to his side. Catherine's constant presence, in particular, seemed to bring him genuine comfort and peace during his most difficult hours. Then came the moment that would define this entire chapter of royal history. King Charles gave a brief televised address from Balmoral. His voice was noticeably weak, but remarkably steady, as he spoke about duty, service, and the critical importance of family during times of crisis and uncertainty. When he specifically mentioned Catherine by name, thanking her publicly for demonstrating the kind of strength and compassion that represented the monarchy's finest traditions, viewers across Britain recognized they were witnessing something genuinely historic. This wasn't just a grateful father-in-law thanking his son's wife for her kindness. This was a king publicly acknowledging and endorsing who truly embodied what the crown should represent. It was a passing of moral authority that happened not through formal ceremony, but through simple recognition of character when it mattered most. The public response was overwhelming and immediate. Crowds spontaneously gathered outside royal residences across the country, leaving flowers and heartfelt messages. Significantly, many of these notes were addressed specifically to Catherine, with numerous cards calling her our future queen and thanking her for her grace under pressure. Foreign diplomats and Commonwealth leaders began directing formal correspondence to William and Catherine's office, effectively bypassing traditional channels. The institutional machinery of monarchy was reorganizing itself around them in real time, and remarkably, nobody seemed particularly surprised or concerned. It felt completely inevitable. Camilla, meanwhile, remained isolated at Ray Mill House, her private estate in Wiltshire. She was surrounded by an increasingly small circle of advisors and staff members. People who visited during this period described a woman who seemed genuinely shocked by how rapidly public opinion had turned against her. She'd apparently expected sympathy and understanding for taking personal time to process her emotions privately. Instead, she found herself becoming increasingly irrelevant. Her official schedule was quietly cleared of all public engagements. Her name began disappearing from palace communications and briefings. The institution was moving forward decisively, and it was moving forward without her. The symbolic culmination of this transformation came when official photographs were released showing King Charles seated in a chair with Catherine standing beside him, and William positioned protectively behind them both. The composition was unmistakable and deliberate. A monarch, his heir, and the woman who would stand alongside that heir when the crown eventually passed. Camilla was not in the photograph. The official caption mentioned continuity and dedication, but the image itself communicated everything far more powerfully than any words possibly could. Britain had watched two women respond to the exact same crisis in completely opposite ways, and the nation had made its judgment about which approach deserved respect and which deserved condemnation. One person had retreated and hidden when courage and presence were desperately needed. Another had stepped forward without being asked or formally invited, simply because it was the right thing to do. Through their choices, both women had revealed exactly who deserved to represent the monarchy's future and carry its values forward. As King Charles continued his difficult recovery process, surrounded by people who genuinely loved and cared for him, something unexpected began emerging across Britain, a feeling of hope. There was certainly ongoing sadness about his serious illness and natural anxiety about what the future might hold. But alongside those difficult emotions was something remarkably positive. Hope that the institution so many people had loved and respected for generations was now in genuinely capable and caring hands. Hope that duty and service still meant something real and tangible rather than just empty words. Hope that when truly tested under the harshest spotlight, the right person had emerged to carry the burden forward. Catherine hadn't sought this moment or campaigned for this responsibility. She hadn't positioned herself or played political games within palace walls. She had simply risen to meet the challenge with exactly the grace, genuine compassion, and quiet strength that the monarchy desperately needed at its most vulnerable moment. And the British people, watching history unfold in real time before their eyes, had already made their decision about who truly deserved their loyalty, respect, and trust going forward. The crown hadn't just survived this unprecedented crisis. It had been fundamentally transformed by it. Transformed not through legislation or constitutional reform, but through the simple demonstration of real character when everything was on the line. In the silence of uncertainty, when the weight of tradition threatened to crumble, one act of courage rekindled faith, restoring dignity and purpose to a shaken institution. The future of the monarchy had revealed itself not in grand ceremonies or official proclamations, but in the quiet actions of someone who showed up when others chose to stay away. This incredible story continues developing with each passing day, revealing more about where the British monarchy is headed and who will lead it into the future. If you want to stay updated on every new development in this unprecedented royal transformation, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Smash the like button if you believe true character and leadership reveal themselves during moments of genuine crisis. Drop a comment below telling us what you think about everything that's unfolded and who you believe truly embodies what the monarchy should represent. This is living history being written right now in real time, and you'll definitely want to be here for every revelation and twist that's still to come. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.